Archived episode. Originally posted September 23rd, 2023.
Today is Friday, September 22nd, meaning if you were interested in participating in Hot Girl Fall, we have about 5 weeks left to shred down several pounds and shimmy into our slutty Halloween costumes. Thought I would get that reminder out of the way at the top of this episode because clearly that reminder is time sensitive. So welcome back to the Andy Talks Energy podcast. I am your host, Andy Ray, full-time professional evidential psychic medium and a normal person with normal concerns, which is why the rest of this episode is going to be the way the rest of this episode is going to be. And this is one last reminder that no part of this podcast has ever been intended to be appropriate for children, so please do not listen to this particular episode in the company of your minors, and not in the company of your man either, because this one's for the girls. Got some stuff that needs to be said. So I'll just jump right into client testimonials. Nothing risque about these, but they are really well written and I do appreciate them. Miss G says, Auntie Ray is a gifted medium. I scheduled a session with her because I had come to some points of challenge related to my path and purpose in life. I'd been watching Andy on TikTok and loved her down-to-earth, this is who I am demeanor. Andy is also very knowledgeable about topics like sexism and misogyny, which was important to me. Prior to our session, I gathered as much information as I could about my departed loved ones. It was difficult because I was the last of the children and grandchildren in my generation, and my closest family members had passed on quite a while ago when I was still very little, some before I was born. I was lucky that a cousin had done some research and had some dates for me to go off of. The reading began when Andy and I took a few deep breaths together. She looked at me and said, I'm literally getting an apple flavor. I started laughing and then sobbing. I knew exactly what the apple reference was, and there is no one that could have known this. Andy went on to identify 2 long-departed loved ones from my maternal side. One was immediately identifiable to me as my maternal grandmother, and the other was one of her 7 brothers who I had never met in person. Andy provided validation after validation, most of which were very granular and specific. There were a couple validations I didn't quite know at the time, but have since unfolded for me and my mother. I was able to hear some very comforting details regarding my choice to seek a divorce. I was also given information about the near future holding more emotional times for me. Well, 2 days after my reading, I learned that my soon-to-be ex filed against me in court, which was going to put me back in court for the holidays. Despite the divorce being ongoing for the last 4 years, I'm confident this latest court action is going to lead to the end of the divorce. It's been 4 years, so I can finally move on with fulfilling my life's purpose. Something kind of funny that Andy told me was related to dating, which I haven't really done yet. Andy told me to pay attention to my gut and be on the lookout for some ick feelings related to men. Little did she know, about a week before my reading, something very icky had happened relating to a male relative. And about 2 weeks after my reading with Andy, a married man, someone who I thought was a friend, actually hit on me. It was very ick. Needless to say, my departed loved ones did assure me, through Andy, that it was nothing I was doing wrong. Lastly, Andy recommended a book for me to read. I bought it immediately and read it thoroughly. This book taught me that I was in fact sensitive to the other side and had been receiving messages all along. The book gave me some instructions on developing my intuition even further. I will 100% see Andy again after the divorce and have already sent 3 friends her way. And yes, I am very knowledgeable about sexism and misogyny, and I wish I didn't have to be. If you are a woman trying to do literally anything in this world, you have to be aware of and work around the expectations of the male individuals you're going to encounter. That's just the way it is. I swear to God, I go into every reading as objective as it's possible to be. I have no expectation, no agenda, no nothing. I am not here to ruin marriages or cause breakups. But if your life is being quantifiably impacted by somebody with a penis, it's gonna come up. I firmly believe mediums only have the capacity to perceive that which they have the capacity to believe to be true. So if a medium's personal biases will prevent them from accurately translating a piece of information, the topic may not even come up. If a medium is themselves fighting tooth and nail to make a toxic relationship work, they will be unable to sniff out the toxicity in your relationship. They will have become nose blind to toxic bad behavior, so to speak. So I have a very keen sniffer for these things because I have not allowed those things to derail me. I wish we didn't have to talk about these things so often. Yeah, if you've got a toxic partner of any gender, it's going to come up. Because remember that departed people are very committed to helping you do what your soul came here to do. And if the relationship you're in is preventing you from doing what you came here to do, that relationship is probably not a good one for you. Especially if the reasons why that relationship are holding you back are not good ones. It's one thing to support a partner through a temporary spat of grief or a temporary, slump because they lost their job, or just, life has rough patches, but if the entire dang relationship is a rough patch, if the entirety of the relationship requires you to set your own ambitions and trajectory aside, it ain't for you. So I hope that helps. Again, I'm not out here to ruin marriages or cause breakups, but I can smell one coming a mile away. I do a lot of readings where these matters come up. I believe people who are dealing with those circumstances in their lives will feel intuitively compelled towards mediums who will be able to help them. So that's why I end up with so many of those particular types of situations on my schedule. It's because departed people are not going to navigate their living loved ones towards mediums who cannot adequately address the major concerns in their life. Okay, I hope that helps. On to more lighthearted feedback. Miss C attended the group reading event on the 20th of September, so just a few days ago, and she sent me feedback right away. Super appreciate that, by the way, Miss C. Here it goes. Thank you so much for the reading last night, and I'm so sorry you had technical difficulties. First of all, today I have been in the best mood and feeling refreshed after hearing from my grandma Millie. Just knowing she is with me is wonderful. Very special relationship there. One really interesting thing is that she mentioned Seattle, where one of my best friends, Mike, lives, and I believe his name came up too. I thought she was just giving evidence, but he reached out to me today with an important issue and a favor. I'm looking forward to seeing how some of the other information from the reading plays out. I'm still laughing about Monty. So, that's kind of a fun reference. During Miss C's reading, the concept of Monty came through clear as a bell. And I was seeing like suits of armor and I was thinking, Monty Python? Now, I've never seen Monty Python, but I have like a gist of what it's supposed to be about. And apparently in a philosophy class, Miss C had watched like back-to-back Monty Python videos, and that would be Grandma Millie letting her know that though Grandma Millie was departed, she was aware of and with Miss C when she was taking that class. And that's a very normal thing for departed people to do. They will reference kind of the particulars of the mundane activities of our daily lives to let us know that they have not missed out on any aspect of our human experience. And one more piece of feedback from the same group reading event. A lot of quick turnaround time. This is another Miss C who said, Andy, just wanted to shoot you a quick note and say thank you so much for the reading. I'm looking at my notes and already kicking myself for not making some specific connections during the reading. Here are a couple. At the beginning of my reading, you mentioned a professional connection named Tom that I couldn't place. I did actually have a former coworker named Tom. I haven't worked with him in years, but he reached out to me a few months ago to say hi. Matching jewelry. You mentioned this and I knew it resonated somewhere, but I couldn't think of it off the top of my head. When my grandmother passed, the one who was coming through for you, my aunt, Pat, the one you mentioned, gave me and all of my female cousins matching gold bracelets that had belonged to my grandmother. You mentioned the professional therapist in my family right after this info, and that's my Aunt Pat, so that must have been my grandmother's way of validating. I'm sure I will reach out with more soon and after I talk to my parents. Just wanted to send these before I forgot. Thanks again. And thank you, Miss C, for the feedback. So group reading events are always a good time. I have 2 scheduled for October, one on the 18th and the other on the 25th. If you are interested in signing up for one of those, there will be a link in the show notes. As always, my group reading events are very small, 6 people only. Everyone gets a reading, and there is often evidential and message overlap across participants. We call those vicarious messages or piggyback messages, winks from spirit, postcards from spirit, etc. So that's all we've got for client feedback, and now we have to get into the meat of this episode, pun intended. So about 1.5 years ago, I was a guest on a dating and relationship podcast called My Dating and Relationship Podcast with Chantel Hyde. And Chantel is a dating and relationship coach based out of Canada, and she makes really good content and writes books about how to navigate the early phases of a relationship to ensure that you're going to be treated respectfully. And if you struggle with how to navigate those situations, her stuff is great. I was already doing those things before I was even aware that she existed. So when I discovered her, I thought it was A, really cool she was into spirituality, and B, I thought it was really cool that she was using science and psychology to back up things that I had felt intuitively compelled to do to protect myself. But yeah. She's posting some fun stuff on her TikTok this week that kind of made me chuckle, and I wanted to expand on that idea with an additional point of consideration. So this week she posted, if you hook up with a guy and he gets off and you do not have to include that man in your body count. And as a former financial accountant, I approve this math. I'd had this thought for a while that I was wondering, how on earth am I going to work this into the podcast? And this just seemed like the perfect opportunity. When considering if you're going to include a man in your body count, ask yourself, did he intentionally cause that orgasm? Or did I give myself an orgasm while he was in the area? Last thing you want to do is give him credit for something he wasn't even paying attention to, right? So there's some food for thought. It's kind of incredible how sex can be an opportunity for self-actualization or an opportunity for self-betrayal. And the partner you choose and the things you do with that partner really do dictate which way that goes. So there's an obvious intersection between sexuality and spirituality, but I don't see it really adequately addressed by the sex therapist guru people who are kind of spiritual on TikTok. So I figured what better opportunity than this episode to share with you some points of consideration that you might mull over before jumping into bed with someone, particularly if you're a woman. At the end of the day, sex is an exchange of energy, but it's also an exchange of possibly DNA and STDs. So this is why I urge you guys to be incredibly careful, physically, but also emotionally and spiritually. So in no particular order, these are the things I wish y'all would keep in mind when choosing partners, choosing activities, and choosing fantasies. This is basic shadow work at the end of the day, so don't overthink it. It's just observing a thing and then going, why that thing? Let's start with kink. And first of all, there's nothing inherently spiritually wrong with kink. This is not kink shaming. But if you have a kink, or more importantly, if someone is trying to talk you into doing their kink, ask yourself what kind of core wounding would have prompted them to fixate on that particular thing. It's usually pretty obvious. Again, this is just basic shadow work. Going, what caused a fixation on that particular thing? And of course, if you are into kink, you should do the same for yourself. People who deal with control issues outside the bedroom will usually have control issues inside the bedroom. And even if they are marketing themselves to you as pleasure doms, please keep in mind that if they have to fetishize paying attention to your desires and preferences, because just doing that naturally isn't exciting enough for them, they may have ego issues that overshadow any physical pleasure you might receive from that situation. So please be aware of not just what they want, but their pitch for it. The pitch can tell you a lot about the intention. And remember, sex is supposed to be an equal and enjoyable exchange of energy, meaning that what you're doing should not be solely about repairing their ego or mood disturbances. Again, this is not kink shaming. I'm just here to help from a spiritual perspective. Okay, when you are fantasizing, ask yourself, are you first-person shooter or are you an observer? And if you are an observer, ask yourself why you are an observer. Is it because you have some confidence issues or you do not believe yourself deserving of that level of attention? Mull that one over. And if you are an active participant in your fantasy, are you fantasizing about the physical sensations or just about the visual? If you are fantasizing about situations that center the gratification of others and the approval you receive for that, please stop that. If you are chronically fantasizing about doing what other people like and getting the approval from that, that's probably happening in other areas of your life. So just mull that over. So that's it for this episode because my camera battery is dying. I can talk more about this stuff on future episodes if you guys are curious about this. Yeah, sex is an opportunity for shadow work. And like I said, self-actualization, don't let it pass you by. Look at your preferences for people, activities, and fantasies, and it can tell you a lot about yourself. And what other people disclose to you can tell you a lot about them. So I hope that was helpful. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in. Links in the show notes for all events and private reading availability. And I'll see you guys next time for episode 36.